What's up, everybody? I'm Scott Tebay with the Small Town Roofer Podcast. Today we have Gavin Shenhav with Masterlyne Corporation. How are you today, Gavin?
Doing awesome. How about you, Scott?
I'm great. Traveled up to Michigan yesterday from Ohio, so I'm a Buckeye in Wolverine country right now, but it's fantastic up here. We're just spending a week, little family vacation up on Lake Erie. So, yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
Everything's good. Yeah, beautiful day here in Southern California. We're in San Diego, getting the weather that we're paying a premium for today. So stoked. Yeah.
I was gonna say, you always get beautiful days, I think, out there, don't you?
Yeah, mostly. We're spoiled for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, funny, this is called Small Town Roofer Podcast, and you're from one of the probably bigger cities in the country, so not necessarily small town, but I know kind of your approach, is very personal and very, very much a small town mentality of taking care of your customers and doing things like that. Before we get, diving into some questions and stuff, why don't you give us, just a 5-minute background on who you are, how you got into the roofing business, and we'll start there.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. So I grew up not necessarily doing like construction stuff, but my dad was super handy. He was trained as like a metal worker from the time that he was a kid. He went to like a trade school, and yeah, I was the gopher. You know what I mean? He was the kind of guy that could figure anything out and definitely butchered some projects. But he was like, if I can do it, I'm not paying somebody else to come do it. Plumbing, small roof repairs, whatever it was, he was doing it. So I kind of had that perspective of, okay, like this is something that I could do, and I always enjoyed that kind of thing. During some of the summers, I got booted off to my stepbrothers to help do construction. Him and his family bought 40 acres in Central California on a mountain with no electricity, no water, and they lived in a trailer, like what you're in besides you're in right now, for a couple of years. So what he did was he actually got a bunch of reclaimed materials from where they used to build the B2s in Los Angeles, like wood and I-beams, H-beams, big metal beams. And I was helping out, pulling nails, rolling giant pieces of wood or metal down the mountain and pouring concrete, all kinds of just random stuff that you'd have, young labor do. And I went to college. I kind of realized I did not like being in an office. That was not for me. I like being outside. I like different challenges every single day. And that sort of in a roundabout way led me to get into sales. Kind of figured out that was something I had a knack for. In college, I paid my way through college playing online poker, and pretty much all my money I was paying for everything was on online poker sites, mostly playing online tournaments. And one day the government just shut everything down. All my money was frozen. So I got a job working at a car dealership. I worked for Ford for a little while. I worked for BMW briefly. And it was fun. It was a good experience, just kind of getting comfortable talking to people in a sales environment, where there's kind of that dynamic. And from there, moved back down to Los Angeles. I went to school at Cal State Monterey Bay, also up in Central California. And then down in LA, kind of just by accident, found a construction sales job. Worked for a couple different companies. And as a salesperson, you always feel like, oh, I could do this better. I could do that better. Because You're not seeing the big picture, right? You're not realizing what a juggling act it all is and what parts they're doing well. It's easy to take that for granted. And eventually, was in a position to be able to start my own thing. I had a previous operation before this one a few years ago that kind of went south, and a couple of years ago started something I'm totally in control of now. And that's been just a huge blessing to me and my family. And yeah, now I've learned a little bit as to what parts are still a big challenge for me and what things I can kind of do well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I covered the bases there for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I am curious about with your online poker, I love gambling. I love playing. I'm a blackjack guy. I just like blackjack mostly. I enjoy like Texas Hold'em and things like that, but mostly play blackjack. But did you ever get the assets unfroze, or is that money still like just frozen?
Eventually I did, but it took a couple of years.
Long time.
The Department of Justice froze. So it wasn't illegal for poker players to play. It was illegal. They said it was illegal for the poker sites to operate in the United States. Yeah, I think it had something to do with like the casinos, some big business kind of just like,
stepping on them. Yeah. No, for sure. I was just curious. I'm like, man, froze. Holy crap. That's so, well, yeah. So, you got into sales, started your own thing. With today, where's your team at? Like, are you still solo operation? I know California has some weird rules on labor. Like, it's not really like the rest of the country where we have a little more leniency on subcontract labor. So can you tell me a little bit about where you're at, like what your team looks like today?
So basically 3 guys that knock doors. That's how we generate leads. And that is, their main focus. And then we've got 3 salespeople effectively. And then in terms of our crews, they're essentially employees, but they have their own business, their own C39, everything else, just to make sure that they can stay busy. We also do exterior painting, heat reflective coatings, windows. We used to do solar too, but we stopped doing that because it got so complicated with the utilities down here that I've just felt it was a huge liability and hassle that, I just wanted to focus on a few things we could do really well.
I think painting's a very complementary business to roofing. I for one, am not doing it because in my market it's 95% vinyl siding. Like everybody's house is vinyl siding or like a masonry product, brick or stone.
Right.
Nobody has like hardy siding or smart siding or what any of those products to where paint is a real necessity very often. But I think it's such a complementary business because it's very much the same as in you're bidding it by the square foot.
Right.
It's pretty cut and dry. There's not, a ton of additional items that can get kind of thrown in the mix, like with interior remodel per se, or deck building. Deck building we used to do, and it had so many little options, like with the railings and the caps and the trim and there's just so many little things that are variables that complicate that process. But yeah, so you're door knocking 3 guys. I do want to get into that because I just started door knocking myself, and I mean very like last week just started. So, and we're not good at it. We're just like trying things out. But I hear of people, and it sounds like this is the way you operate. You've got canvassers that's their job is to go canvas, and then you've got sales reps. I'm assuming that once the canvasser gets a lead, it transitions to that a sales rep. Explain to me the process or the thought behind doing that. I know that, like, I believe Pettigrew, the Monarch Roofing owner, I believe that's his process also. A lot of guys believe in that. I'm trying to understand where that is the benefit instead of having the canvasser also do the inspection while he's there. I'm curious to your thoughts on that.
I mean, I guess it depends. I mean, if the guy you have knocking doors is the sales rep, there's a lot of people say that somebody who's going to be receptive to somebody who knocks the door might be a more impulse buyer compared to somebody who's going to shop online for 6 months and research every line item on a bid to figure out what material they're going to go with. So are the guys that are knocking, are they the sales reps? Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah, and that's essentially what we're doing. And that way, the goal for me, and like I said, I don't know if this is right. We've never done this, so this is not like I'm an experienced canvasser at all. Our market doesn't even have storms, so this is like very, very little. But we can clearly see wind damage from time to time, so we're going to stop and knock. But my goal is for that sales rep, he sees damage on the house, he pulls in the driveway, knocks the door. And before he leaves, hopefully he can do some sort of inspection on the roof and either write a retail quote if they don't want to get their insurance involved, or give them an inspection to pass on to their insurance company, hopefully right there, like on the spot. And I don't know if that's right or not, but how's your process? If you got to tell me how it starts with a guy knocking the door and then get it to a closed sale.
So typically, like, naturally somewhere that you're already doing a job or somewhere where you have a sign in the yard is going to make a massive difference. If you've done multiple jobs and on the same block, if you can have the hardest part of the canvassing is, so like, let me kind of like back up for a second, kind of trying to explain my perspective on it. If you walk into a retail store to buy a pair of shoes, right? You're there looking for shoes. But when someone says to you, hey, how can I help you? What do you tell them? What do you say?
I don't need help. Yeah, I'm
just looking, right? But you're there, like if you find what you want, like you will buy, right?
Sure.
So you got to get past that first reflex, which is always no. And I feel like right now it's an even bigger challenge because there's so many weird things going on with all these weird scams. You get texts for people to click on some email. You go on Nextdoor and everyone's like, who's this creepy person at my door? So really, to kind of simplify it, you got to try and like make a friend and earn their trust really quickly. So if you can kind of just say, hey, the reason I'm in the area, the reason I knocked on your door is we were just working on so-and-so's roof, and just driving by a couple times, I noticed some curling on your shingles, a little bit of wind damage. When was that the last time you had that professionally inspected? How old is the roof? How long have you guys been here? You can kind of, sometimes even just asking questions can kind of keep them engaged. Sometimes they can even kind of give you a no or a soft no, and you can ask a completely unrelated question and they'll keep answering it, and you can go back to kind of keeping them on your path, right?
Right.
So that's really the first major obstacle, is just getting past their initial objection. If you can find some rapport with them, that has to be natural, right? You can't be like, oh, I love fishing, and you know nothing about fishing. They're going to sense that it's not natural. If you're genuine, you're out there, you want to help them, you want to earn their business. If they do need something, they're going to sense that. They might not be thinking it consciously, but they'll sense it. So really just in a real quick way, kind of earning that. And if somebody tells you, oh no, I don't want a roof, I'm not ready for that, nothing, you kind of have to like empathize, but then move on. So, Scott, I can totally understand and appreciate that. I know you're not ready to make a big decision like that, make a decision. My goal is just to provide some really good information and just let you know the condition of your roof. We're here in the, in the area doing that, helping some other homeowners out. And, their roof looks like it was a similar age. They ran into X, Y, and Z. When was the last time you looked at that, or, had somebody kind of give you some info on it? And that's really it. If you can kind of get them to feel that you're coming from a perspective of wanting to help and really provide something and not just sell them something,
sure,
then you'll kind of get there.
So your goal is you're having that canvasser just collect that customer's data, and then you're passing that data to a sales rep. Is that what you're doing?
No, we actually have another step in between with somebody who confirms the appointment.
Okay.
Yeah, and that does help. There's two different ways you can do that. I'm sure there's others, but you can either door confirm that appointment, right? So they can call somebody right from the door. Hey, Scott, I'm here with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I got them down for tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We took just a quick look at their roof. We noticed X, Y, and Z, but we're going to set some time aside to look in the attic, or really take some pictures, whatever it is, to really figure out what's going on for them. We just want to confirm that's going to be the best time for everyone. The confirmer's sort of just going to repeat that. Now, if they do it in front of the person that knocked the door, there's kind of some added pressure on them, right? So sometimes they'll agree and then ghost you. That does happen. But it makes the appointment a little bit stronger now that they talk to another person. If they just collect the information, it's very hard to get a hold of people. You call people, they're not answering they're a lot of times not answering their phones. You text them a number, they don't respond. Some people have all that stuff automatically just get blocked, right?
Right.
So it's best if you kind of can set it. But from your perspective, if you guys are leaving an estimate and you're doing follow-up on a lot of your appointments anyway, like you're not really having to work off of a one-call close model anyway, and you're leaving like a very professional estimate, using ProLine, I would try and kind of just do the process while you're there. I would try and inspect it there. I mean, if it's your sales guy knocking the door, I would just probably, hey, I'm already here. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm not taking lunch for another 30 minutes.
Right.
Want me to snap a couple pictures and kind of just show you what's going on? If Scott, if you don't need a roof, and everything's good to go, it's going to take me 5 minutes. If you do, pretty simple. We've got a great reputation here. I'm sure you've seen some of our yard signs here in the past. We did the so-and-so family on the corner. They were real happy with us. Are you cool with me looking at it for 5 minutes? You want to hop up there? Right. And a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, sure, why not? Just let me know. If they like you, I mean, that's the thing. Like, them liking you is 90% of the battle. You might have, life happens, right? They might be in the middle of something, it might be a bad time, and that's when you want to be respectful of that. You can't push it on them, right? I mean, you're kind of just knocking on someone's door. They didn't invite you there.
So is canvassing is that the only way you guys are generating leads right now? Is that your primary form of lead intake?
Mostly, yeah. I mean, we do get, some referrals. We're not doing much of anything on social media. That's something I'm trying to improve. I mean, little by little, I've worked on our website. It's passable, but really, like, our website's kind of more like intended. If one of my guys goes and knocks on somebody's door, they can go online and see that, we have a professional website with nice pictures, some projects on there, but it could be a lot better. It could be more personal. There's some things I'm doing to improve it. We've tried, we just started it, to give them like a fair shot, some like online lead sources, and they're terrible. I mean, so far.
Really? Don't have any luck in that kind of like retail from advertising type.
Yeah, I mean, you pay $130 for a lead. And if you get a hold of them, like, you might get it says it's an exclusive re-roof, right? Lead. And you talk to the homeowner, it's a renter who, wants one window fixed, and the landlord doesn't want to even do it, but they just want to know how much it is, right? It's like, how did this happen? Like, it just, And you know what? Like, the same thing does happen knocking doors too. You could have a conversation with one person, and then you show up and, at the door, and they're like leaving, and they're like, I told your guy, like, I'm not interested, and just leave. Like, weird stuff happens. But in terms of like conversions and like sales, canvas leads, in my experience, are the best. I've run with a previous company. We worked with Yelp. This was years ago. Maybe it's different now, but like, first week we did like $100,000 in sales with like a 90% close with Windows at that time, because we had the right license for that with that company, and that was for some reason what was working on Yelp. And then just a massive drop off in the quality of the leads, where almost every single lead was like somebody lived in a condo with 2 windows, right? And it's like, it just kind of seems like they know what's going. I mean, this is anecdotal, right? But it seemed like they know the quality of the leads, they want to get you hooked, and then they're just giving you mostly like garbage, right?
Sure.
So
they're so difficult. We have had luck with like Google local service ads.
Mm-hmm.
We're very hell bent on our SEO, so we put a lot of time into that. So we rank very high on SEO. So that's where we see that in social. But it's mostly organic. We don't see very much traffic from paid social. Actually, almost zero. Paid social has really been bad for us this year, unfortunately, because we're good at it. Like, I think we do okay with it, but it's just it's such a saturated beast that like everybody has Facebook ads today. Everybody. If you don't have Facebook ads, like, or at least have tried them, you're probably just not even in business now. You know what I mean? In my area, like that was the number one source, and then now it's so flooded that literally one of my guys opens up his Facebook, and he was telling, because I'm not on it, I don't use Facebook, so he's showing me, and as he's scrolling his newsfeed, I mean, we're for like maybe 60 seconds scrolling through his newsfeed, there was like 12 different roofing ads on his newsfeed. Obviously, he's looking up roofing content.
Right.
Some of that, but 12, like, that's a lot. So especially in a matter of 60 seconds. I mean, that's not that many posts that we scrolled past to find that. So it's an interesting game right now. But so with your crews that sounds like they're kind of subcontract, are you have to do any training with these guys, or are they kind of?
Yeah, we do have to do training, and the reason is because we're Emerald Pro for Malarkey Roofing Products, so we got to make sure that everything is installed, manufacturer specs. Like, it's got to be spot on, right? I don't want a homeowner to have an issue down the line when the manufacturer is like, hey, you guys didn't do X, Y, and Z right. Your standard warranty on your materials not.
Yep. I think that's the biggest mistake with subs is, they are subs. They are kind of their own entity. But, if that relationship is going to be a long-term relationship, you have to train them on your processes. And we've got one crew we've worked with more so than the rest that's literally just freaking spot on, man. They do everything right, exactly the way it's supposed to be done every single time. They even kind of like close out their own job sites to where, like, we really don't even have to go do a final inspection, because they'll take 75 photos of the job, which that used to be our closeout process. They've just kind of taken that on. We said, hey, if you want to do it while you're there at the end of the job, you'd save us from, doing it. They're just like, hell yeah, we're already up there. So they just start snapping photos. And so, so things like that. I mean, if you can just train your subs, I mean, you have to, like you said, it's not really an option. You kind of have to. But so we got about 15 minutes left here. we were talking before we started, and I'd like to jump into kind of, you've watched a little bit of the content I've put out and had some comments on things, and kind of one of the things you said was you're still in that point of business where you've got a really, really stressful job, right?
Yeah.
And if anybody that listens can relate, like you didn't get into business and not have a period of time where you had a really freaking stressful job, not a business. You didn't start day one with some kick-ass business that kind of, has all these systems and processes to work and run smoothly. You started with a really shitty, stressful job for a while. So, and with that, the balance of life too. So, with that really stressful job comes a really difficult time balancing work and family and home and friends and, all these things. So tell me today, like, how many years have you been at the roofing game and kind of where your business is at with that little bit of struggle still, and what your thoughts are on getting out, and maybe you ask me some questions. Maybe I could maybe point you in a direction, or give you a pointer from my experience.
Yeah. So I've been in the business for over 10 years now, but I've had like just something that's just my operation for the last couple of years. And I do have a partner who's the license holder who helps run production, which is really an important factor too. There's no chance I could do what I'm doing with sales and marketing and do, full-time production stuff. Like if there's somebody listening trying to do that, like you for sure have those, you got to focus on one of those two things. It's almost impossible to do both, especially if, you do have a family. I mean, that's a big undertaking. So I would say, yeah, my biggest challenge sometimes is maybe like how to like delegate something and kind of surrendering to the fact that like it's not going to be as good if somebody else is doing it. So I kind of just have to say to myself, okay, if they can do it 75% or 80% of what I could do, I just have to be able to live with it, and that's just as good as it's going to get. And that's really something that's hard for me, because sometimes like I want things to be perfect, but I got to let go of that. I'm working on that. And
with that, I think that was always my number, 75%. If they can be a C student, compared to what I believe I'm an A+,
okay,
it's usually acceptable. Because that's acceptable. And the thing is, as long as they're not dropping the ball, as long as they're a steady C student, they can't be a C on Monday and Tuesday and a D on Friday, like steady C student. And as long as they are, to me, and I just believe that what I can do with that freed up time inside business, like actually with some distance between me and the daily operation of things, I can improve all of these things to where that C student, that C effort puts out an A+ performance, right? So if I can step away, they're still doing their C work, right? But I can get all these processes like our ProLine quotes. They're really good. We're getting ready to do another thing. I can't talk about it just yet, but I'm going to make it to where these guys, let's say a financing option, right? Let's just say financing. I've tried to get guys to sell financing forever. Well, if I can somehow sit back, take the time, embed these financing options directly into the quote template, well, now they don't necessarily have to be this all-star financing sales rep. No, I've built this really, really articulate one-page document with embedded links and all this stuff to where they don't have to be some all-star financing guy. No, it's right there to where they can just hand it over. So things like that really take out that lack of between you and them, like that separation. You can close that distance by building out the process better for them to be more successful. That's what I think. But there is a period of time where you've got this really shitty job and this really stressful job because you got to build them processes and get all that stuff right before you can actually like step back and let the C players kind of, just utilize what you've built it's how it seemed for me. It took a while.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I'm definitely still in it. I'm telling myself like little by little it'll improve, but I think you're right. Like something that you said just now really helped. Like you do have to set that time aside. So I'm still out in the field doing a lot of inspections, giving a lot of estimates myself. I'm trying to collect a lot of stuff for like videos and things like that too. So, I'm out there doing that, but I think you're right. Setting that time aside to really improve those processes. Like right now, there've been a lot of improvements on Proline, and I'm a little behind. I got to kind of go back in and figure out. Like I went in there, I'm like, all my quotes are broken. What am I? What's going on? I got to figure this out. But that's been a huge help. Like even just having somewhere where all my leads are there, all the jobs in progress are there, the scope of work is there, so my production manager can give that to our guys, and they don't need to be calling me as much. Like even if it takes like a little bit off your plate, like that helps a lot. I didn't realize how much having a good CRM was going to help. We actually only implemented that at the beginning of this year. So before that, I was basically using a spreadsheet, where you could attach photos to it, smart sheets, which was fine. But I mean, even that, we weren't taking the time to use it enough. But yeah, I mean, now with Proline, I mean, one of my reps has been doing really well with follow-ups. Like, it's not just, and another thing that's been kind of a surprise is he'll be like, hey, like I forgot that the gutters are in there. I got a customer call me back and tell me, hey, I want to move forward and I want to do the gutters too. And that's kind of been like, wow, this is really cool. Like there's definitely a lot we could do there. So yeah, if there's somebody listening to this and you're on the fence about doing a CRM, implementing a CRM, you're going to wonder why you didn't do it sooner once you do it, once you get it dialed in. So that's been.
Well, in the communication side in Proline, kind of the golden goose that sets it apart. I mean, as the owner, you can sit there and you can look at the communication between your reps and your potential customers, and none of that stuff goes away. It's saved. It's always there. You can go back and reflect. If the job sells, the production manager can, if you give him access, he can look at that conversation to make sure that nothing was missed. It's such a handy tool. I mean, it really changed our business, but that's another process that could really take a lot of time and effort. Not necessarily, but make that 75% guy better is that automated follow-up. And something I did, and I'm sure you've probably heard about it, but I saw that we had all these automated follow-up messages that go out, and we just weren't getting a whole lot of responses. Our response rate was pretty damn low, which it shouldn't be, because it's coming from the sales rep's cell phone number that the sales rep communicated with the customer. That's where the quote come from. You know what I mean? Like they've got that number, so it's not like a spam type number. It's a real salesperson number. Mm-hmm. So I was really surprised. Our response rate was just very low. So what we did was, I set aside some time to go in the office, spend some time in the office and work on ways to improve our response rate. And what I did was I basically took all the automated messages that are in Proline on sales follow-up and I just tweaked them a little bit. So like instead of hi or hello, I put hey, like more personable, right? Mm-hmm. Something. If I was texting you, I would say, hey, man, what's up? This is Scott eBay. Just wanted to follow up, make sure you got the quote. I'm not going to say, hello, Mr. Customer. No, I'm going to say, like I'm talking to you. But I also put in some errors, and dude, as soon as I put some typos in there, so like I would like not put a comma where there should be a comma, or forget some punctuation, or just little things, right, that are absolutely 100% acceptable in a text. Like you're allowed to have a typo or miss some punctuation in text and not be considered an idiot. You're allowed to do that. And it's kind of expected. So that's what I did. I made it look realistic. Our freaking response rate just skyrocketed. It's done way better. So I don't know if, that's just something else you could set some time aside for that mm-hmm. honestly just makes those guys that are good guys perform even better. But Proline is like, dude, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
That communication part of it is such a big deal.
I remember the first couple of weeks, I was trying to get like my estimates dialed in and everything. And I was on there working on something and I was kind of stuck, and I went into like the live chat. It was probably 10 o'clock at night, right? And I'm on the West Coast, and AJ hops in there and was like, hey, how can I help you? And I was like, what? I was like, this is so cool. I'd already seen a lot of the content online and whatnot at that point. I was like, this is awesome. And I was like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Can we do it this way? And he's like, I don't see a reason not to. Give me 5 minutes. And he changed it in the CRM. I mean, obviously that's not something long-term that's,
sustainable.
But it was so cool. And I was like, dude, I love this. And now I have the quote the way I wanted it. And I was like, I'm so stoked I went this direction with like a small team that's like private, the whole thing's privately owned. And that means, you're dealing with like a big business, one of the big brands, something like that. Like that's just, you're not even going to get hurt, let alone anything going to change. That was so.
Well, yeah. And he I don't think the dude sleeps. Like, I don't think he goes to sleep. I don't understand it. Because I talk to him early morning, late evening, middle of the day. Like, it doesn't matter. And then I know that he does development overnight. So I'm like,
Yeah.
When do you go to bed, dude? Like, you got to take a nap or something. You know what I mean? But
I don't know.
it's nice because even as it grows, the way that Proline, I don't want to get too, we're going to have to get right in this. But, with the way it's built, it's very customizable. Where a lot of these box software CRM are very, for instance, I can't name names, but I've actually had 3 different CRMs over the course of my business, and one of them sent follow-up messages, sent 2. It would only allow 2. And so I emailed them. I said, hey, can I add to this chain of messaging? And they're like, no, 2's all that's allowed. That's how the system is built. And it's like,
why is that up to you?
Right. Why can't I just click a button that says add and make the next one? It's the same thing. Like, there's no more data that has to happen here. You've already built that. Like, but they won't customize things to add those features. And that's what's fantastic with Proline. It's very easy to use, but it's also very customizable if you want it to be. So anyway, I won't keep you any longer, man. I do appreciate the time. This has been great. I think we got some good stuff out there and had some really good discussion. But I would love to talk again sometime, maybe get into the door knocking stuff a little bit more, because I'm so intrigued by that process. And I think it's, I'm going to end on this note. I think because the lack of trust with everything online today and all the ads and all these things, I think in-person sales is maybe the direction we're headed. I think we're going backwards. I think we went so far forwards with all this digital stuff and buying online and all these things. I think these big purchases, I think we're going to go backwards. I think everybody's going to start trusting that in-person sale more. So that's why we're looking at it. That's why we're making an option. But cool, man. Well, I'll let you be. Guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Small Town Roofer. If anybody wants to reach out, chat, email me, Scott@smalltownroofer.com. Gavin, have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Scott. Take care.
We'll see you.